Carter and his family are driving from Atlanta to Raleigh. They drive for 2 hours and 45 minutes at an average speed of 60 miles per hour. How far did Carter and his family travel in that time? Anybody think they know? Brody? Anybody else have an answer? I got 2 different answers so far. Okay, C? Okay, he said it first. Can you explain it?
No, I just guessed.
Okay. No. Okay, so nobody actually knows how to do it, so let's go over it. Okay.
I know how to do it.
You don't even have to do that much. If it's 60 miles per hour, how many miles is that per minute? Isn't that 1 mile per minute? Okay, let me explain that. If you're going 60 miles in an hour, aren't there 60 minutes in an hour? So that's 1 mile every minute. Well, now if you're going 1 mile per minute, we need to figure out how many minutes he's driving. How many minutes are in 2 hours? 120, 60 per hour, and then 45 more minutes would add up to 165 minutes. Well, if you can go 1 mile per minute, then you can go 165 miles in 165 minutes, right? So C. Okay, now get out your review sheet. We're going to go over it. Number 1, what property is being shown in each of the following? Okay? Right, you can see from this given equation and this step 1 that they divided by 3 on both sides, and they're doing that in order to cancel out the 3 beside the x, and that is the property of equality for division, or you can just write division POE. Okay, box 2, we have x plus 7 equals 11. Then you see that they're doing what on both sides? Right, they're subtracting that 7 on both sides so that they can cancel out the 7 on the left. That is the subtraction property of equality, or property of equality for subtraction. Okay, box number 3, what have they done from step 1 to step 2? Very good. The 2 times the x is where they got 2x. The 2 times the negative 4 is where they got the negative 8. So distributive property. All right, and then the last one. Don't tell me the property. Tell me what happened. Right, they just flip-flopped it. 22 was on the left, now it's on the right. 3x plus 7 was on the right, now it's on the left. What property says that you can do that? Symmetric property. No. It's going to be multiple choice anyway. All right, number 2. Oops. Identify the property used in each step of solving the equation. Okay, well think about what you would do. If you had the equation 7x plus y equals 55, what would you do first? Right, subtract 6 on both sides. Is that what they did? Yes, because look, all of a sudden in their next step, all they have is 7x. The 6 somehow disappeared, so they must have subtracted 6 from it. The 55 became 49. The only way that could happen is if you subtract 6. So they did the subtraction property of equality. Okay, then if you had this, what would you do next? Is that what they did? Yes, because look, the 7's disappeared because 7 divided by 7 is 1. And then 49 became a 7 because 49 divided by 7 is 7. Division property of equality. All right, find the 2 mistakes in solving the equation below. I always recommend you writing it out yourself in solving it, and sometimes that makes it easier to figure out where they went wrong. Right, first you should do 6 times 2x and get 12x, and then 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. But if you look over at their work, they have the 12x, but they don't have minus 24, they have minus 4. And like Vanessa said, they forgot to distribute that to that, so that's their first mistake. And then what did they do wrong next, Kimberly? Right, not that this number was correct, but they should have at least did the inverse of minus 4, which would have been adding 4 on both sides. Okay, what they did would not have canceled out. It would have given them 12x minus 8. Negative 4 minus 4 is negative 8, not 0. They should have added 4 on both sides. All right, number 4. Given the equation y equals mx plus b, solve for x. So they just want you to get the x by itself. What do I do first? Not quite yet. What do I subtract the b first? Okay, so first I'm doing the subtraction property of equality. The b minus b cancels on this side. On the left, you can't actually subtract that, so just rewrite it. And now to get x by itself, what do I do? Right, so now I'm doing the division property of equality by dividing by m on both sides. The m's cancel, leaving x by itself like we wanted. So technically we finished. X equals y minus b over m. I prefer to rewrite it like this. X equals y minus b over m, which is what property says I can do that? Symmetric. Or they're probably not going to because everything is a letter, but you may see them split it into 2 separate fractions. But normally they only split it up like that when something can be reduced. And when there's no numbers, nothing can be reduced. So normally they would probably just leave it like this. Okay? Any questions so far? Number 5. Okay, we have A equals 2B plus 2C, and they want you to solve for the B. So what do I do first? Right, that's the property of equality for subtraction. On the right, they cancel each other out because they're additive inverses. One's a positive 2, one's a negative 2. On the left, you have A minus 2C, and on the right, you have 2B. Now to get the b by itself, you can divide by the 2 on both sides, which is the division property of equality. Well, but first, before you do that, I'm going to use the symmetric property to reverse the order, and now I'm going to split it up like this. Now, like Vanessa said, these will become a 1, right? 2 divided by 2 is 1, and do you have to write the 1? No. So you can just cancel them out, and your answer is just a over 2 minus c. I have no idea. Oh, normally, you know, there's buses that run around this time for the CCI students. Okay, number 6. Given x divided by 3 minus 6 equals y, solve for x. So what do we do first? Well, we add the 6 first. Those cancel, and now on the left side of the problem you have x divided by 3, and on the right side you have y plus 6. Now what do we do to get x by itself? Right, multiply by 3, and 3 on top and 3 on bottom are 1, which leaves x by itself. But here's where you really got to pay attention. You're also going to multiply this side by 3. But you don't just multiply the 6 by 3 or the y by 3. You multiply the entire side by 3, which means you distribute the 3, giving you what? Right. All right, number 7. x minus 8 plus 2x is, or divided by 2 is greater than 7. Okay, you could do that first. Or there's another thing you could have done first. What else? What else could you have done first? We could have combined these like terms. So in the next step, since the 2's are gone, I'm going to go ahead and combine the x and the 2x to make 3x on this side. And then on this side you have 14. Oops. I do not know. Okay, now what do we do? Right? So 3x is greater than 22. And now what do we do? Divide by 3. So x is greater than 7.33. We'll just round it to the hundredths place. Okay, any questions so far? Yep. If you're done writing, go ahead and turn the page to number 8. I'll have to look at the test. You mean on the number line? I don't know if there are or not, honestly. Okay, number 8. Solve the inequality and graph the solution. Okay, to solve this, what do we do first? Divide by the negative 3 on both sides, which becomes x and negative 7. But we divided by negative, so this greater than sign becomes a less than sign. Now, whenever they've given you a number line and they have not given you numbers on it, I normally just put 3 numbers. I'll put 0 in the middle and then the number that I'm going to be circling and then its opposite. Okay, so we circle the negative 7. Is it an open or closed circle? Open. And why is that? Correct. There's no equal to bar. That means the solutions are not equal to negative 7. They are only less than negative 7. So all of the solutions are which way on the number line? To the left. Numbers like negative 8, negative 9, all the way to negative infinity. And then the solutions go to the right until they get to negative 7. And it gets a parenthesis because negative 7 is not one of the solutions. Okay, now remember, negative 7 is not one of the solutions because think about it. If you took the original statement and plugged in negative 7 for x, what is negative 3 times negative 7? Is 21 greater than 21? No, they're equal, so that's a false statement. That's why you don't fill it in, because that's not a solution. It doesn't work. It makes a false statement. All the solutions that will work are less than negative 7, like negative 8, negative 9, and so on. Think about it. If you plug in a number like negative 8, what is negative 3 times negative 8? Positive 24. Is positive 24 greater than 21? Yes. So numbers like negative 8, negative 9, negative 10, all the way to negative infinity, when plugged in, will make true statements. Negative 7 and anything greater than it, like negative 6 and then into the positives, will not work. Okay, number 9. Can I move on, or are you still copying? Okay, number 9. The sum of 3 consecutive numbers is 42. Write and simplify the equation to model this. Okay, so we need 3 numbers. They have to be consecutive, which means what? Yeah, back to back to back. So we need to write the equation, but right now the numbers are unknown. So x. Right? To get to the number after x, you'd add 1 to it. And to get to the number after that, you would add 2. Because think about it. 3 consecutive numbers are numbers like 1, 2, and 3, right? Well, if 1 is the x, to get to 2, don't you do 1 plus 1 will give you 2, and 1 plus 2 will give you 3? Now these need to sum to 42. So now I combine like terms and I get 3x plus 3. So there's my equation. So that's the answer to part A. Part B wants us to solve for x. Right, subtract the 3 from both sides and get 3x equals 39. And now what do I do? And x equals 13. So that's the answer for B. And then part C wants to know the three numbers. Well, if x is 13, the next numbers and the next numbers. And what should you do to make sure you've done it right? Add them up and make sure they sum up to 42. Now raise your hand if you could have gotten B and C even if you didn't know how to do A. Because think about it. Couldn't you sit here and play around with numbers that add up to 42 and that are consecutive? So if you can at least get the numbers, the first one will always be the x value. And then think about it. Couldn't you take the 4 equations that are there in your choices and plug in your x value into each x place until you find the one that works? But even if you can't, this is a partial credit question because there's 3 parts. So at least do the parts you can and get points for those. But if you can at least get the 3 numbers, you can work backwards and get the other 2 things. Okay, because your first number is the x value. And then to figure out which equation is right, plug in your x value for each x and see which equation works out. Okay, number 10. Devin is saving money to buy a new car. So far, he has saved up $6,500 and he plans to save $300 a week from his paycheck. He wants to spend no more than $9,000 on the car. Write an inequality to model the number of weeks it will take him to be able to buy the car. Okay, well, what's he starting with? Well, first in his savings, he's got this much money, right? And he's saving more. You could have started the other way. He's saving more, so we're adding to that amount at what rate? $300 a week. So yes, if you wanted to, you could have written $300W plus $6,500. That's okay also. Now, we know that he needs $9,000. But look, he wants to spend no more than $9,000. What is no more than $9,000? Less than or equal to $9,000. Because think about it. No more than $9,000 is $9,000 or less, right? So less than or equal to $9,000. Now what do we do to figure out how many weeks it will take him? Subtract that, because that's basically subtracting off the money he already has saved, because we're trying to figure out what he needs to save or how many weeks it will take him. So now if you subtract off what he already has saved, it'll tell you how much he needs to save, which is right. So that's the amount he needs to save to get to that $9,000 car, right? And if he's making $300 a week, divide by 300. And so that means it needs to take him no more than 8 1/3 weeks. So by the time he's worked 9 weeks, he'll be able to buy the car. Because normally you're not going to get paid 1/3 of the week through. You're going to have to finish out that week for the paycheck. So more than likely it'll take him 9 full weeks to buy the car. No, but think about it. He's already saved up that much money. He's already got... Well, let's... Okay, number 11. Number 11. The band is selling lollipops to raise money for their trip to Disney World. Each box contains 50 lollipops, and the box costs 20. So like for us to buy the box, it's going to cost us 20. Then you can turn around and sell those 50 lollipops for however much you want to sell them for. Okay, but we want to create and solve an inequality to find the amount the school has to charge per lollipop to make a profit of at least $10 per box. So, we're selling 50 lollipops. Do we currently know what the price per lollipop is? No. So I'm going to put an X by that because the price of each of the lollipops is unknown. All we do know is that we're selling 50. If we're trying to make a profit of $10 per box, how much do I need to make on those 50 lollipops? At least how much? You know, I bought them for 20. So for me to make a profit of 10 bucks, I need to make $30 on them, right? $30 per box. Okay, let me say that again. If I pay 20 bucks for the box and I want to be able to make at least $10, don't I need to make $30 on each box? So I need to make at least 30, which is greater than or equal to 30. Now what do I do to solve for the price per lollipop? Divide by 50, divide by 50, and so the price of each lollipop needs to be greater than or equal to 30 divided by 50. 0.6, which would be 60 cents each, right? 60 cents each. Okay, now remember, tomorrow you're going to have multiple choices, so couldn't you just take each cost that they give you, multiply it by the amount you're selling, and see how much money that would make, and see if that would be a 10 buck profit, or whatever profit?
Yes.
Okay, number 12. Shh, get quiet. Number 12. We are going to graph the equation y equals 2x minus 5. Well, to be able to graph an equation, you have to be able to identify the slope and the y-intercept. What is the slope? The slope? 2 over 1. Remember, x is x. The slope is the number in the m place, which is a 2. And since we want our slope to be a fraction, you put it over 1, which is going to tell us to go what direction? Up to right 1. What is the y-intercept? Negative 5. Okay, so you go down 5 and plot a point. And then from there you go up to right 1. Up to right 1. Up to right 1. Up to right 1. As long as you want to. Or we could have gone what way? Down to left 1, down to left 1. Then you connect your points with a line. And this is an equation, not an inequality. It's an equation because there's an equal sign, so there's no shading. All of your solutions are points on this line. Okay, every point on this line is a solution to this equation. Okay, now let's turn to the next page, number 13. Turn around and pay attention. Your test is tomorrow.
Okay.
And I showed you after the last test how similar the review sheet is to the test. So you need to pay attention. Number 13, negative 3x is greater than or equal to 9. There is no y in this equation, or actually inequality. So when there is no y, you need to get x by itself. So what do I need to do? Divide by negative 3 on both sides. Those cancel. And x is now, like Jade said, switch the sign, less than or equal to negative 3. Whenever you have no y and it's just x and a number, what kind of line does it make? Vertical. Think about it. If you want to cut through the x-axis at negative 3, here's the x-axis at negative 3. Doesn't that mean your line needs to be a vertical line to cut through the x-axis at negative 3? Now, it's also a solid line because there's an equal to bar. But in addition to all the points on this line being solutions, the rest of the solutions are found where? Less than the line, which would be to the left. Numbers less than negative 3. Yes, Samantha? Hold on 1 second. Okay, all the solutions are less than negative 3, which would be left of negative 3. 14. Number 14. Graph the linear inequality y is less than 3x minus 1. Well, to graph something, you have to identify its slope and its y-intercept. What is the slope? And what is the y-intercept? Okay, the slope tells us what directions. And then the y-intercept is -1. And then from that -1, you go up 3, right 1. Up 3, right 1. Up 3, right 1. Or you could have gone down 3, left 1. Shh, be quiet. Down 3, left 1. Now, you draw a dashed line because there's no equal to bar. And then that means there are no solutions on the actual line. Okay? The only solutions are going to be in the shaded area, which is less than the line. Well, if you go to the starting point of the line, less than would be this way, right? Okay? And then all of this shading just kind of oozes into all of the other parts, but it does not go across the line. That line is like a boundary keeping it all on that side. It's okay. Yeah, but it'll be multiple choice. Alright, number 15. Graph the linear inequality. Y is, hold on, it messed up. Y is greater than 6 minus x. Before we graph it, what should we do to it? Right, first put that negative x first, because that's your mx. It's a -1x, and then your b is a +6. So the slope is -1. Since it's a whole number, put it over 1 so that you'll have a rise over run, and your y-intercept is +6. So you go up 6, and then from there, down 1, right 1. Or we could have gone up 1 and left 1. Is it a dashed or solid? Dashed. And since I put so many points, you don't really have to do that many dashes because it already looks dashed. Okay, now that means no solutions are found on the actual line. All the solutions will be found greater than the line. If you go to the y-intercept, greater than the line would be this way, right? And then all of that shading just goes in that area, but does not cross over that boundary line. Okay, so any point selected in that shaded area would make a true statement when plugged in for this x and y. Any point on the line or in this area would not make a true statement. Okay, number 16. Number 16. Which graph shows the solutions to the equation x plus y equals 5? Well, before we try to select the correct graph, what should we do first to the equation? Get y by itself. So what do? Subtract the x, and it becomes y equals 5 minus x, or like Jade was saying, you could go ahead and reverse the order and put your mx first and your b second. So what is my slope? Right, and what is my y-intercept? Okay, so see how these graphs are kind of hard to read? It's going to be like that on the test. Okay, but watch how easy I can figure out without even being able to read this well. What kind of line should it be, going up or going down? Going down, because I have a negative slope. That eliminates C, because that line's going up from left to right. Be quiet. Where should the line cut through the y-axis? 5. This one cuts through at negative something. This one cuts through at negative something. This is the only one that cuts through the y-axis at a positive number, and it looks like about 5, even though you can't read it well. So this is the right answer. So do you see how even though I can't read the graph very well, by knowing that the line goes down and by knowing that it crosses through at +5, you can figure out which one it is? So don't freak out tomorrow if you can't read the graph. You can still figure out the answer, I promise. Okay, number 17. Explain the mistake, there's only one, that she made in her work. Okay, when you see something like this, I know a lot of you are going to be like, ooh, I don't know what to do. Well, you don't have to know what to do. She's doing the work for you. You just have to read through her work and see where she went wrong. Pay attention. So look at this first line. See how you have a negative 3x and a positive 2x? Shouldn't you combine them on the same side? Well, that's what she did. To get this 2x removed from this side, she subtracted it. And then she subtracted it on over here, which made it become a negative 5x. Then at that point, to get x by itself, wouldn't you divide by negative 5? No, you're trying to get x by itself. So you remove the number beside the x, which is negative 5. Divide by negative 5, divide by negative 5. So she did that okay. 4 divided by negative 5 is negative 0.8. So what did she do wrong? She didn't flip the sign. She didn't flip the sign. Okay? But that's what they're asking you to figure out, that one little thing. Okay, when you divide by negative, she didn't flip the sign. It should have reversed to a less than sign. Kimberly, what were you about to ask? How they got from this to this? They multiplied this side by 2 and this side by 3. But that's what I'm saying. Tomorrow, don't worry about that. She's doing the work for you. Just look through the steps and see what went wrong. Okay, number 18. Identify the property used in each step of solving the equation. Okay, if you solve something like 4 and then parentheses x plus 7 plus 3x equals 17, what would you do? Okay, does that look like what they did? Yes, 4 times x made the 4x, 4 times 7 made the 28. So the first step is distributive property. I'm getting really frustrated with people that are not paying attention considering your test is tomorrow. It makes me want to not allow you to retest if I do allow a retest for everybody else. Okay, now what do I do? Well, before that though, look what has happened. From this step to this step, what's the only difference? No, not that. Well, didn't they reverse the 28 and the 3x? What says that you can just reverse the order when you're adding? No. Symmetric is when you flip-flop the entire side over the equal. Commutative property of addition says that you can add in any order. Commutative property of addition. Okay, and not that you have to do that, but why does it look like she did that? To get the 4x and the 3x side by side, because she's about to do what to them? Combine like terms. But do you really have to put them side by side to combine them? No. Okay, then, if you were at this step, what would you now do? No, not yet. You would subtract that 28, right? Well, does that look like what they did? Yeah, because the only way to get from a 17 to a negative 11 is by subtracting 28. So they did the subtraction property of equality or property of equality for subtraction. And then you can see that they divided by 7. How else would they have ended up with negative 11 over 7? So the division POE. All right, number 19. A rectangle is 8 meters longer than it is wide. Its perimeter is 60. Find its length and its width. Okay, well, the first thing I did was I drew myself a rectangle because I like visuals. Right now, I don't know the length and I don't know the width. They're both unknown, so I'm going to put X for unknown. But what do I know about one of them? So the length is 8 meters more, right? So on the length side, shouldn't I just add 8 more? Well, look, this is a rectangle. So if this side is x plus 8 meters, this side is x plus 8 meters. And if this side is x meters, then so is this one. And they're wanting you to find the perimeter, which is, how do you calculate perimeter of a rectangle? You add up all 4 sides. So add them all up and tell me what you get. 4x plus 16, and yes, you should equal that to 60 because that's what they've told us the perimeter is. Now to solve for x, what do I do? So now I have 4x equals 44. And now what do I do? Divide by 4, division property of equality, and x equals 11. So look, if x equals 11, isn't that your width? How would you now find your length? Add 8 to the 11, which is 19. And then couldn't you check it by adding 19 plus 19 plus 11 plus 11 and making sure it is 60? Okay, number 20, last one. Are you still copying? Anybody? No? Somebody is. She left it open so that when she comes back it won't be shut and locked. Alright, number 20. Find 4 consecutive even integers whose sum is 140. Okay, well right now we don't know any of these integers, right? They are unknown. But what do you know about the integers? They all have to be even and they have to be consecutive. So like if your first even number is 2, the next even number is 4. To get from 2 to 4 you have to do what? Add 2 to it. Then the next even number is 6. To get from 2 to 6 you have to add 4. And then your next even number is 8. To get from a 2 to an 8 you have to add 6. Now combine those and what do you get? Right, 4x plus 12, and they should add up because it says the sum is 140. Now what do I do? And you get 4x equals 140 minus 12, which is 128. Make sure tomorrow y'all are using your calculator, don't just guess. Now what do I do? Divide by 4, and so x equals, okay, now x is your first number, your smallest. So the next number would be, and then the next number would be, and then the last number would be, okay, what should you do after you get those? Add them all up, make sure they really do add up to 140. Okay, give me attention. All right, number 1, convert 5,400 inches to miles, and then they give you some helpful conversions. So we start with a chain. 5,400 inches is our given information, and we're trying to convert that into miles. Well, what can we put on the bottom? So 12 inches (5,280 feet) is 1 mile. I'm now done with my chain because the chain has made it to miles, which is what I wanted to make it to. Inches cancels out inches, feet cancels out feet. The numerators are just 5,400 times 1 times 1, which will remain 5,400. What property is that? What property set 5,400 times 1 is 5,400? Identity property multiplication. On the bottom you have 12 times 5,280, which is 63,360. Now divide those and see what you get. You sure? Is that what y'all got? 11.73. Okay, number 2. Which sum is rational? Well, okay, that's what I was about to ask. Does anybody remember what it means to be rational?
It can be turned into a decimal.
Okay, whoa. I knew that was not right. I just divided it. It's D. So that's why I just worked it out. 5,400 divided by 63,360 is D. 0.085 miles. Right. Rational, the first 5 letters are ratio, which is a fraction. So you want to know which of these can become a fraction. So we're going to type them in and see if they'll become a fraction. How do you type in pi? No, there's actually a second, and then look right here. Above that button, there's a pi symbol. So pi plus, I can't remember what it was. Hold on, let me get rid of this one for now. Oh, never mind. I forgot that I put it in my thing. Pi plus 18. And now that it's typed in, how do I see if it will become a fraction? Alpha y equals number 4, right. Did it become a fraction? No. So that one is irrational. It will not become a fraction. Now let's type in b. How do you type in the square root of 25? And then 25. And then they want us to add 1.75 to that. There's 5. They're worth 2 points each. Now, how do I see if that will become a fraction? Is that a fraction? Which means this one is rational. So B is rational, the one that will become a fraction. All right, number 3. They want us to combine these polynomials. What do I do first? Right. Let's first turn this into an addition problem. But like she said, that will make this negative and this negative. So when I'm combining the 6x squared, I'm adding it to negative 7x squared. And what is a 6 plus a negative 7? Negative 1x squared. Well, look, there's only one negative 1x squared. So D has to be the right answer. But let's just check just to make sure we get that. Negative 8x cubed plus negative 5x cubed is negative 13x cubed. Okay? Number 4. This is even older, so you're going to have to think back. What is quartile 1 in the following data set? Anybody remember how to start this? It is D, but why? Very good. However, you got lucky, Vanessa, and I'll show you why. The first thing you have to do is put it in order. So 1 would come first, 3 would come second, then 5, then 7, then 8. Right, and like Vanessa said, first you find your median of all the data. The middle of all the data is 7, which is your Q2. Q1 is the median of the lower half. Well, the middle of the lower half is 3. And then 14 would have been quartile 3. But why did Vanessa get lucky when she just guessed D? But did you put it in order? Oh, okay. I thought you just saw that this was the middle of the lower half. But it just happened that 3 was in the middle of the lower half when it wasn't in order too. But make sure you put them in order because it might not be like that tomorrow. Make sure you put them in order first. Yes? Oh, you put them in the calculator? You can also do that. Okay, number 5. Use the table below to answer the following question. How many students in the 9th grade are surveyed? Okay, well, what would you do? Add up all the 9th graders. There were 3 9th graders that like birds, 49 that like cats, 53 that like dogs, and 22 that like fish. And those add up to C. I'm trusting y'all. Y'all actually added them up? That would be 52, that would be 105, and then, yeah, that would work.